The sharp hiss of air escaping a tire cut through the quiet morning like a snake in the grass. Sheriff Cole Maddox killed the engine of his John Deere and stepped down, boots sinking into the soft, dew-covered earth of his own land that had belonged to the Maddox family for 5 generations. He walked a few steps and squatted low, frowning as he plucked a jagged roofing nail from the dirt road that led to his lower pasture. He let out a slow breath, for more nails glinted nearby in the early light. One had already pierced the rear tire, its dull head buried halfway into rubber like a spear from the shadows. 3rd time this month. Cole stood up and scanned the tree line bordering his field, jaw clenched. Birds chirped innocently overhead, and the scent of alfalfa drifted on the breeze, but none of it softened the storm rising behind his eyes. This wasn't bad luck. This was sabotage. And he already knew who was behind it. Karen Whitmore, president of the Birch Valley Homeowners Association and self-declared protector of neighborhood standards. She had moved into the newly built subdivision that butted against his land about a year ago and had been a thorn in his side ever since. At first, she came bearing cookies and pamphlets, welcome packets filled with bylaws, rules about fencing, vehicle types, and community decorum. Cole had politely declined both the sweets and the jurisdiction. After all, his 42-acre farm wasn't part of any HOA. It never had been. But Karen didn't take no kindly.
Soon came the complaints.
Then the threats. She cited him for keeping non-conforming livestock. She mailed violations about his unesthetic equipment, meaning his tractors, and even demanded he repaint his barn to blend in with the community's suburban palette. The woman didn't understand boundaries, legal or personal. Cole sighed and pulled out his phone, snapping a photo of the scattered nails for the report. As sheriff of Clearwater County, he was used to handling disputes, neighbors fighting over fences, livestock straying too far, but this was different. This was personal. Karen had taken her petty campaign from bureaucracy to blatant vandalism. 2 weeks ago, someone had slashed his irrigation lines. A few days later, his fence gate was mysteriously unhinged and his cattle had wandered nearly a mile off property. And now, nails on the trail he used every morning. Cole pocketed the nail, stood tall, and took a long look at his land. The same soil his father tilled, the same stretch of pasture his grandfather had once ridden across on horseback. This wasn't just a farm. It was a legacy. And he wasn't about to let some clipboard tyrant run roughshod over it. He climbed back into the tractor and turned the key, coaxing the engine to life with a sputter. The rear tire groaned under its own weight, and he didn't push it. Better to tow it later and file the report than risk ruining the rim. He pulled out his notebook and jotted a few things down.
The date.
The location of the nails. The make of the tractor. Karen's name, underlined twice. She thought he was bluffing. That because he wore the badge, he'd avoid involving himself. She was wrong. Because before he was sheriff, he was a Maddox. And Maddox men didn't fold under pressure. They stood tall, even if the winds of progress and HOA paperwork blew in their face. As he walked toward the barn, the distant hum of leaf blowers and lawnmowers from the nearby subdivision echoed through the hills. Birch Valley's identical 2-stories sat just across the boundary line, their vinyl siding and ornamental mailboxes lined up like toy soldiers on a shelf. To Karen, his barn was an eyesore. To Cole, it was history. He paused outside the feed shed and glanced back toward the road where the nails had been laid. The sun had climbed a little higher, casting long, stretched shadows across the field like reaching fingers. Something was coming. He could feel it. But this time, he wasn't going to just react. He was going to fight back. And he wasn't bringing a clipboard. He was bringing the law. The hum of an idling SUV broke the late morning silence. Cole stood beside his barn, watching Karen Whitmore step out of her spotless, white Lexus like she was arriving at a photo shoot. A man in cargo shorts trailed her, clutching a tablet and looking anywhere but at Cole. She wore her power like perfume, heavy, artificial, and meant to overwhelm. "Sheriff Maddox," she said, shielding her eyes from the sun with a manicured hand. "We're here for property inspection. Routine." Cole crossed his arms. Not on my land, you're not.
Karen's smile thinned.
Birch Valley, HOA has jurisdiction over the sector now, per the 2024 Expansion Amendment. He pulled a document from his back pocket, folded, creased, but legally sound. This is the original plat map filed with the county. My boundary ends where your manicured lawns begin. This farm was excluded from your expansion, and the court hasn't ruled otherwise. Karen took the map, glanced at it with feigned interest, then handed it off to the man behind her. Our board has a different interpretation. That's not how property law works. She stepped forward, high heels crunching on gravel. Sheriff, this is about community standards. Your barn, your equipment, the livestock, none of it aligns with our aesthetic regulations. We've received multiple complaints. From who? Your mirror? Her smile faltered. I'm not part of your HOA, he continued. Never signed your charter, never agreed to your terms. This land isn't up for debate. Karen's assistant tried to interject, but she raised a hand to silence him. Then perhaps we'll escalate this through legal channels. But I'm here to offer you a chance to cooperate. Voluntarily. You mean surrender. She shrugged, eyes drifting to the tractor sitting lopsided in the field. Call it what you like. But resistance only invites more scrutiny. He followed her gaze. You know anything about the nails someone left out there? Her expression didn't flinch. Nails? That sounds dangerous. Perhaps your equipment needs an upgrade. He took a slow step forward. You sabotaged my land again, and I won't be dealing with you as a neighbor. I'll be dealing with you as the law. Her eyes narrowed behind her oversized sunglasses. Is that a threat? No, he said, voice even. It's a guarantee. She turned on her heel and walked briskly back to her car. Come along, Derek, she called to the assistant, who trailed her like a chastised child. As her Lexus pulled away, Cole took one last look at the tire tracks left in his gravel driveway, like scars on skin. He felt the weight of his badge pressing on his chest, not out of pride, but responsibility. This wasn't just about property lines anymore. Karen had made it personal. Her attempt to redraw boundaries wasn't about rules, it was about dominance. And that meant she'd be back. Inside his office, Cole pulled up the sheriff's database. He opened a file titled Birch Valley HOA Complaints and began typing. Subject: Karen Whitmore. Nature: trespassing, unlawful inspections, harassment, suspected vandalism. Status: ongoing. Recommendation: set surveillance, pursue legal boundary clarification. He paused, then added one more note. Pattern suggests escalation likely. Prepare accordingly. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the old photo on the wall. His father, standing in this same field, holding a shovel in one hand and Cole, just a boy, on his shoulder. This is yours one day, his father had said. That promise echoed louder now than ever. Outside, the wind stirred the tall grass in the southern pasture, and a storm bank gathered on the horizon. Not weather.
Karen.
Cole knew the game she played. Death by paper cuts. Endless letters, fines, anonymous complaints. She didn't break rules. She buried people in them. And she'd already decided he was an obstacle to remove, not a neighbor to coexist with. But she'd underestimated him. He wasn't just a sheriff. He was the last Maddox on this land. And he was done waiting for her next move. 2 nights later, under a moon so full it lit the pasture in silver, Cole crouched beside the south fence line, silent as a shadow. The soft chirp of cicadas filled the air, but Cole's ears were trained on the gravel access road that wound along the tree line. Motion sensor lights on the barn had been switched off deliberately. He wasn't just waiting. He was hunting. A small trail cam blinked red at the edge of the fence, newly installed and pointing directly at the area where he'd found nails, twice more, in the past week. But this time, Cole wasn't leaving evidence to chance. He had baited the trap. Earlier that day, he'd parked his older backup tractor, rusty but operational, right where the road curved into a blind spot from the neighborhood's cul-de-sac. It was his oldest machine, but he loved it like a relic. A busted tire would scream foul play. And tonight, he was certain Karen would take the bait. A soft crunch of tires over gravel broke the stillness. A slow roll. No headlights. Just the whisper of rubber inching closer.
Cole tensed.
Through the trees, he caught a flicker of movement, a shadow exiting the passenger side of a vehicle, crouched low, something metallic glinting in their hand. Then came the clink, a small, unmistakable sound, nails being scattered onto the gravel like seeds. He stepped forward deliberately, flashlight clicking on. "Don't move." The figure froze. The light hit her face.
Karen.
She looked up, mouth parting in shock, mascara catching the glare like war paint. Behind her, the Lexus's engine coughed back to life. Cole pulled his badge from his belt and held it up. "Step away from the nails." Slowly. This isn't," she stammered, the arrogance drained from her voice, replaced with panic. "Caught in the act," he said. "And on camera." He motioned toward the blinking red in the trees. Karen's eyes followed it, widening. "You've just committed criminal mischief, trespassing, and attempted property damage. And you did it while knowing exactly who I am and where you were standing." "This is a mistake," she hissed. "You can't prove it was me." "Oh, I can. That camera's high definition. And you're standing in the nails you dropped." She looked down and immediately stepped back, as if the metal had burned her. "You don't understand. This place, this farm, is ruining the property values of the entire development. I was just trying to intimidate me? Maintain standards." Cole's jaw worked side to side as he holstered the flashlight. "You've crossed every line, Karen. This isn't about barns or tractors. It's about control." He pulled a citation pad from his back pocket. "You're under citizen's arrest for vandalism and trespassing. I'll be filing formal charges in the morning." Karen straightened, the Karen persona snapping back into place like armor. "I have lawyers."
"Good.
"They'll get a copy of the footage, too." She said nothing, glaring at him like a child caught with a broken vase in hand. He stepped aside, gesturing toward her car. "Get back in the vehicle. You're leaving my land. And you're not coming back without a court order." She hesitated, but the flash of red-blue lights from the cruiser that had just pulled up beside the barn ended the discussion. Deputy Hart stepped out, eyes wide as he took in the scene. "Told you she'd show," Cole muttered. Karen slid back into her Lexus, cheeks burning with fury and embarrassment. As the vehicle turned and rolled away, Cole let out a long, slow breath. The wind stirred the trees again. The land was quiet, but the war wasn't over. Inside his office later that night, Cole saved the video footage, made 3 backup copies, and sent one directly to the county attorney. The others were encrypted and stored, just in case she tried to spin the narrative. Karen had tried to paint him as the relic, a stubborn remnant of a bygone era. But tonight proved something different. When you push a man to the edge of his own land, don't be surprised if he draws a line in the dirt and dares you to cross it. The courtroom was cold, marble floors, pale walls, and a judge with a gaze like granite. Cole sat straight-backed in the front row, boots polished, uniform crisp. This wasn't about show. It was about truth. Karen Whitmore sat across the aisle, her usual arrogance dulled under the sterile light. Gone were the designer sunglasses and sharp blazers. Today, she wore a muted gray suit that made her look smaller, less certain. Her attorney whispered something in her ear. She didn't respond. Cole's footage had spread faster than wildfire. First to the county attorney, then to the local press. Birch Valley residents had seen their HOA queen on the 6 o'clock news, caught red-handed sabotaging a sheriff's tractor in the dead of night. She hadn't just stepped over the line. She'd detonated it. The charges stuck. Trespassing, vandalism, attempted destruction of property. And though she wouldn't see jail time, it was a first offense after all. Karen now faced public disgrace, a hefty fine, and a permanent mark on her spotless record. But the courtroom wasn't the endgame. Cole had something bigger in mind. After the verdict was read and Karen slinked from the room, he stayed behind, waiting for the judge to gather his papers. "Sheriff Maddox," Judge Rollins said, noticing him. "Something else?" "Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to file an emergency motion for declaratory relief. I have legal standing to challenge the HOA's attempted annexation of my property." Rollins raised an eyebrow. That feud still going? It's not a feud anymore, Cole said, pulling out a leather folder. It's a land grab dressed as civic duty. And I've got evidence. Inside were documents, surveyor's maps, timestamps from trail cams, emails leaked by a former HOA board member. Proof that Karen and her board had falsified parts of the expansion vote. That they'd knowingly pushed into non-HOA land, hoping no one would fight back. They hadn't counted on the sheriff owning the land in question. Give this to the clerk, Rollins said, scanning the top page. I'll fast-track the hearing. Cole nodded and left, feeling the first clean breath of freedom in weeks. A month later, a new sign stood at the entrance to the Maddox property. Private property, no HOA access. The court had ruled in his favor. The expansion was nullified. His land was formally and permanently excluded from Birch Valley jurisdiction. Karen had resigned from the HOA board 2 days before the ruling was announced. Rumor had it she was relocating to Arizona. Somewhere with better neighbors, she claimed. Somewhere no one knew what she'd done. Cole didn't celebrate. He worked. He rebuilt the fence line, repaired the tractor, repainted the barn his father had built with his bare hands. For the first time in months, the land felt like his again, not just by law, but in spirit. One afternoon, as he spread hay in the field, a group of kids from the neighborhood rode past on their bikes. One slowed, waved. Hey, Sheriff Maddox. That lady's gone, huh? Cole smiled, lifting his hand in return. Looks that way. My mom said you hooped her with the law. He chuckled. Something like that. As the kids disappeared down the road, Cole leaned against the tractor and let the wind wash over him. This land wasn't just soil and fence posts. It was legacy. It was the last living thread between him and the man who taught him what it meant to stand her ground. Karen had brought bureaucracy, arrogance, and spite to a fight she thought was about appearance. But what she'd run into was something she didn't understand. Roots. Deep ones. The kind that don't budge when someone in heels stomps her way across them. Cole looked out across the horizon, green, vast, and uninterrupted. His land. His rules. And now, finally, his peace.